thanks to President Trump signing an executive order not so long ago, there's an awful lot of attention on us. So investment is not a problem now, but we find that because we are very rigorous with our regulations and our governance, utilise it for the benefit of our people.
Welcome to the Elements of Deep Sea Mining, Bev Ataera. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
Okay, so you are now what's your title? The Commissioner of the Cook Islands Deep Sea?
Cook Islands Seabed Minerals Authority.
And you're relatively new in this role, is that right?
I've been in the role since September.
Oh.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, like I was just saying, this podcast, my goal here is to try to give people who are familiar with deep sea mining generally some insight into the Cook Island situation. I think you guys are one of the most talked about locations for deep sea mining. So I'm sure anyone who listens to this podcast is, aware that you guys are setting some of the standards for developing regulations and things inside your exclusive economic zone. But I'm hoping that you can give good context and nuance and information to people who, like I said, understand deep sea mining, but not so much about the Cook Islands. Yeah, I've got a couple of places where we could start. I'm not sure if there's anywhere that you would like to start. How do you see the international deep sea mining conversations as compared to the Cook Islands? What makes the Cook Islands kind of different, or what characterizes the Cook Islands situation when it comes to deep sea minerals? What makes you guys unique?
What makes us unique? What makes us special? Apart from being paradise, we're very blessed in that regard. I think what's different for us is we're a water state. We're 99% water. So 200 million square kilometres, not including our extended continental shelf. And our land mass is relatively tiny with 15,000 residents, which swells to 30,000 when we have tourists on the island. So we're very small in regards of land mass, but we're all water. And within our water, we have some of the world's most richest polymetallic nodules, which can contain very high-grade nickel and cobalt, among other things. But nickel and cobalt are the ones that are talked about. They're very deep. I think this is underestimated about how deep they are. So on average, our water depth is around 5 kilometres deep.
Oh, really?
But at some depths, you could actually hide Mount Everest. You'd lose Mount Everest. It's so deep. So I think the size and scale of our water is lost on people sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly easy to get to. So unlike the CCZ, where it takes 4 weeks to get out to the area, it takes 4 days by boat to get to our equivalent areas to study our nodules, to understand the environment. So we're easily accessible, and it's just not as remote as the area in the CCZ.
Can you tell me just a little bit about kind of the history or the timeline of your Seabed Minerals program and focus? Has this been a focus for the Cook Islands for a long time? I've heard people sort of suggest that it was really during COVID when tourism cratered for you guys, when everybody stopped traveling, that you invested in the Seabed Minerals as kind of like an attempt to diversify. But tell me the timeline here.
Yeah, I can understand why people say that. I think COVID actually highlighted that we were here. We've known about our nodules for well over 50 years. Technology has had to catch up. Seabed Minerals Authority has been in place for over 12 years, and we've had an operating governance here for over 12 years. So we've been operating well before COVID came on the scene. But when COVID actually became the global shock that it was, and it affected our tourism industry, there was an awareness that we actually needed to diversify and have in place more resilience around our income as a nation. So people look towards Seabed, what we're investigating and what we're doing, to say, is this a source where we can have some resilience alongside our other industries, which is tourism. So it was more of an awareness thing thanks to COVID. We were happily trucking along doing all of our environmental
What about
research.
locally? Was it always something that was kind of a national conversation about the potential for a new industry?
Absolutely. Everybody has known about us for, 12, 13 years now.
Yeah.
So this is not new to our people, but the understanding of the resilience certainly came about 3-4 years ago.
When is the tourist season? You said that you swell when you get tourists.
It's actually now. It's all the way through May, June, July, August. That's the peak season.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much 9-10 months of the year is tourist season.
Yeah.
Christmas is when it gets quiet.
I mean, that's what I would have imagined. I was a little bit surprised you said that it swells, because I thought, wow, you guys live in paradise, so it's always a good time to head there.
It's always a good time to come here.
Okay, I guess maybe just let's talk about how far along you are or where you are in your process, and what's the state of regulation and development and permitting.
So we are in the exploration phase. We have 3 current license holders who are 4 and a bit years into a 5-year license. And that was a deliberate decision on our part to have a 5-year license for exploration. So we look at what the ISA is doing all the time. So we try and take what the ISA is doing and make sure we're equal, if not anticipating being better. So we took their 15-year license and said, look, a lot of people don't really get a lot of things done. So we did 5 years to try and push work along.
Oh, interesting.
Knowing that they weren't going to get it done. But so they're roughly halfway through their work plans, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
In November this year, we are anticipating our license holders will apply for a renewal for another 5 years to complete their exploration work. They may or may not complete it in that time frame. But if we look at the trajectory of what they've done so far, they're well on the path of completing all of their exploration work and understanding the environmental impacts, certainly, and putting in plans in place to manage that. Then the next thing we're looking at is the commercial realities of minerals extraction. So with trial mineral harvesting after that. So there's 2 keys to what we're looking at. Environmental, which is incredibly important, the most important thing. But then the other thing for a small island developing state is we have to make sure that it's commercial and that then have an attempt at it and then fail. So our job is to make sure that these things will work and it will be sustainable. So you've got environmental and commercial. We look at both of those in lockstep.
Interesting. So you've got an exploration phase ongoing, 3 license holders, and it sounds like they all are on the same timeline. They all got their licenses at the same time. So you've got 3 actors kind of moving along together. And you're very clear in this distinction between exploration and exploitation. So exploitation is the same with the ISA system, kind of not yet established the rules around how that's going to be done.
We have our regulations in place already, so we're ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Our license holders are not at that stage yet, though.
That's different than the ISA. You guys actually have your exploitation regulations available, and so once somebody kind of gets to that point, then you already know a little bit what you're going to be requiring in the next phase.
Yes.
Can you say more about the environmental and the economic, and that it's part of your role to make sure that the economics are there so that you don't have a company, I guess, that recklessly starts something that they can't finish? Because I think this is part of the discussion that I hear often is kind of like, why is everybody so interested in the economics of deep sea mining beyond the companies? Shouldn't we just leave it up to the companies whether or not this is economic, and we'll just regulate the environmental side and they can make it work if they make it work, and if they're not, then it's kind of on them. So I'm interested to hear more about why it's important that you have a good grasp of whether or not the economics are there before regulating.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. We can't, like you said, it would be reckless. That it would be reckless to let someone come in and attempt. When you're providing a license for an area for somebody to do extraction, and if they fail, that license is stuck for the period that you've issued it. So for us, a minerals harvesting license would be for 30 years. So if they fail, it becomes sterilized essentially, and nobody else can access that. So for us, we have to make sure that they can do the job that they're committing to. So 1, it doesn't sterilize the area, but 2, because we'll be heavily relying on the income that we get, our royalties from that. which will then sustain our nation and provide us with the economic resilience and growth that we're looking for. We have to protect that just as much as we protect the environment.
Yeah.
So for us, they have equal weight, and therefore they deserve equal rigor from us.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, I know in the story of Balawarra, the government invested into Nautilus Minerals and then kind of was one of the parties that lost out when the operation didn't succeed. So you're not talking about investing in these companies, but even without investing in them, you still have a interest. This is, like you say, the economics of this is something that your nation is relying on. So even without actually investing in the companies directly like that, you're still a very important kind of economic stakeholder, almost shareholder.
Yeah, we have to make sure they're responsible.
Amazing. Okay. Can you say a little bit more about what that process looks like? I guess I'm in Norway. We going through a lot of discussion about what the Norwegian regulatory framework should look like. So I'm interested in hearing more details, and especially in this, like, what would it take to make an exploitation or a recovery license happen?
Oh, Eric, that's a far more complicated question than it comes across, right? We have two elements where questions need to be answered. And this is the equation. So we have on one side, we have our environmental. So are there the environmental management plans, habitat zones, spatial planning, are all those things in place? And if that gets signed off, where the impact is acceptable, and we know there's going to be an impact, we do, but whether it's acceptable on the size and scale we're talking about, and I can talk about size and scale in a minute, then we've got a bunch of questions around the commercial reality. So they have to do pre-feasibility studies. We have to see them do trial mineral harvesting. So there's some 148 steps which can be viewed on our website. It's incredibly transparent. It's all there if somebody wants to wade through some 150 odd documents. Mm-hmm. There's hundreds of documents there, but all the steps are there. And it's about 158 questions that our license holders are going to have to satisfy us on. Then it doesn't actually sit with just the Seabed Minerals Authority. There are other agencies involved, which disperses the responsibility. So it doesn't just sit with myself and my team to go, yes, it can be done. We go, the commercial side is done. Our National Environment Service has to say, yes, that satisfies the Environment Service. And then it has to go through to a panel of independent experts to go, yes, these two things equal a yes or a no. Mm-hmm. If any part of that equation is a no, doesn't go ahead. It's a stop. So it's incredibly rigorous, incredibly transparent. It's not as simple as, yeah, we think we can do it.
And it has multiple different actors overseeing the multiple different kind of authorities that could say no. So it's not that all of the power is vested in you in the Seabed Minerals Authority to give thumbs up. There's other people who can say, you know what, this doesn't actually meet the criteria that are important to us. Yeah, I think that sounds important. One of the things that we struggle with in Norway, there's a big trust issue around transparency. I think is one of the things that Norway stumbled over. You hear that even though Norway has high trust in its government generally, and it's a lot of transparency, I think in the deep sea mining developments, there was a lot of feeling of, we don't understand the process. The process hasn't been clearly explained to us. So I understand this is one of the things that I hear about your approach is that you guys emphasize transparency. And I think that trust comes along with that.
We speak to our people an awful lot. So if we look at how the Seabed Minerals Authority is constructed, we have knowledge management, so our scientists. We have our regulatory policy team. Of equal size is our partnerships and collaboration team. And so they're of equal size, equal importance, and their entire job is to take all of the information, and there's an awful lot of it, terabytes a day coming through, and they have to translate it and share it with our people on a daily basis. So, and figure out a way in doing it that's informative, not boring.
Right.
So we do public updates. So we go out to our public, we have conversations with them. We put things out in our media, social media, news articles. We publish in scientific journals. Everything we do is on our internet, so it's there for everybody to see and have input to. That is the cornerstone of what we do, is the transparency. And with that comes trust.
Yeah.
People trust our process. They trust that they have a say.
And tell me about the state of the community enthusiasm, concern, around deep sea mining. How many Cook Islanders are there? You said already, was it as little as 15,000?
15,000 on the island, but if you go to our diaspora, so if you go to New Zealand and Australia, there's some 200,000 Cook Islanders.
Okay.
So if they ever came home, there wouldn't be space for everybody to come home. So yes, there's a very large community. The team has gone to New Zealand and Australia and spoken to our communities over there. We've gone to our South Islands. We've just come back from our Northern Islands, and we're about to go around Rarotonga again over the coming months to all of the different villages in Rarotonga to speak to our people. And it's kind of like painting the Sydney Harbour Bridge. We start, and by the time we finish, we have to start again.
Yeah.
We have new information.
And and how do people, to the extent that you can kind of summarize the collective opinion around this industry in the Cook Islands, what are the concerns? What are the things that people bring up? What are the issues that you guys are aware of?
Primarily, their concern is around the size and scale. For the Cook Islands people, water is everything. It is our livelihood. It's where our fish comes from. It's where our food comes from. It's everything to do with genealogy and culture. So protecting it is the priority. And making sure that we if we do something within it, it's going to be responsible and respectful culturally. That's the primary concern. So we often speak about size and scale, and we talk about how much space it would take up. And we talk about it in the size of a rugby field, because everybody can imagine a rugby field. So we say, imagine our EEZ is a rugby field. Now imagine the scrum. That would be the size of 3 license holders over a 30-year period. That would be the size that they would be harvesting. So that immediately alleviates, so it's not actually our entire EEZ. It's just a very tiny portion. Therefore, we can protect the area. So you alleviate that concern there. And then you can't pick up all the nodules either. It's like raking leaves. There's always going to be some left behind. We'll have plans in place to look after the environment. So that's a concern. Then the concern flips to the income that comes from it. It would be significant, and it would have to be invested properly. And so our Ministry of Finance and Economic Management have put in place a sovereign wealth fund in preparation should we go to harvesting. And it's not a done deal by any means, but you have to prepare these things. And so our people are concerned about how we would manage that wealth. We look at our friends in Nauru and other places where wealth hasn't necessarily been managed as well as it could have. And we want to put in place things that will manage that for our people. So the concerns are our environment, the wealth, and making sure that we're doing things responsibly. Overwhelmingly, though, people are waiting to see how we progress through the process. They're waiting to see if it's going to happen or not. Cautiously optimistic is how I would phrase the general feel. You obviously have certain groups out there that are raising more concerns than others. And they're valid concerns, and we welcome those.
Yeah, that's, I guess, a question I also wanted to ask you is who else? So I've done now 40 episodes of this podcast. Everybody says, Eric, the thing that you're missing is Pacific Island voices. You need to get more voices from that area onto this. So I wonder also if you have got any suggestions, and we could also take it afterwards, of who else I should talk to, who else, maybe not necessarily names, but organizations or perspectives, or that you think should be heard also internationally.
So obviously we've got our local NGOs here. It would be absolutely, you should hear their voices. They have a perspective which should be heard. His Ocean's Ancestors are just two of them. There's the Hawaiian group, the Maui Collective too, which I met them at ISA. They have a very good grasp of what's required for cultural heritage. And we talk to all of these groups, and we hear what they're saying, and we have to take it on board. And I think it's well worth having their perspective as well.
That's great. I'll follow up those. How does what the ISA does matter to what you do? Are you just separate, doing your own thing? I mean, like you said, you try to make sure that your rules and regulations are like at least as rigorous and you're following their lead to some extent. But, if they continue to get bogged down getting their exploitation regulations lined up, if there's sort of controversy with what's going on in the US, are you guys affected by that, or are you well independent of the ISA?
Not independent of the ISA. We're a member of the UN's UNCLOS. We abide by UNCLOS. We're also a sponsoring state. So we are embedded within the ISA and deeply respectful of the work that they do and deeply supportive of it too. Where possible, try to align. Makes life a lot easier for everybody. And if you think about the collective genius of the ISA, when you sit in that room full of all the countries that are contributing to the world's largest set of regulations to do with deep sea, we would be very foolish not to take on that collective genius and implement ourselves. So we participate and we to a large extent follow, and we try and anticipate what they're doing, and sometimes we try and put things in place where we think that's where they're going, and we think that we're very strong because of it. And we've been doing this now for a very long time alongside the alongside the ISA.
Yeah, I like that perspective of strength in numbers and how important it is to cooperate and collaborate with everybody on this. Yeah. What about being a small nation? Do you have outside interests who are pushing for certain things? Is that part of your job, is managing power dynamics? I mean, it's tough for me to tell because I have a focus on deep sea mining, and I can see that it's becoming more relevant to, geopolitics and all these conversations. I don't really know how important it is, aside from that it's becoming more important. So I just wonder, as I'm talking to you, if that's part of the difficulty of your role, is keeping enough investment in, because you obviously can't do all of this alone, but maintaining enough independence and control. I wonder if there's anything to be said about that.
There is a tension, I'm not going to lie. And there's, thanks to President Trump signing an executive order not so long ago, there's an awful lot of attention on us as a nation. I'm not going to lie. So investment is not a problem now. It's probably too much attention, and it has the ability to distract from our core work sometimes. But we find that because we are very rigorous with our regulations and our governance, it's actually very easy for us to take the interest and utilize it for the benefit of our people. When we look at the investment to date into DSM through our license holders and through research partners. So we've had research partners with America, long-standing partnership with Japan. We've even had Norway, the British History Museum, China. We've had a lot of people help us do our research. And the benefits to our people, I think sometimes are overlooked. So we now have spatial mapping of a large portion of our EEZ. That helps us plan for natural disasters. It helps us plan where our FADs and our moorings go. So we can do more planning now thanks to the investment in DSM, which would never have occurred otherwise. We like the research. We encourage it. We are friends with everybody. We say that science is a universal language. And anyone who wants to do science or participate in science in our orders, we welcome that. Because it creates understanding for us and it helps us with our national priorities. One
of the things that has come up in the news about the Cook Islands and deep sea mining is this kind of push and pull between the US and China. You guys sort of ended up, at least in the news cycle, as a argument nexus between spheres of influence or something. I wonder if you've got any perspective on that, if that was a big issue locally, or if it's something that just came across my desk in headlines and it was business as usual in terms of, like you said, you get research and assistance from all sorts of different places. So I a little bit wondered, is this unusual, or is this a narrative being built up around kind of always goes on?
I think it's a bit of a narrative, to be honest. And I saw there was a news article from the Singaporean Foreign Affairs Minister He was talking about Singapore and their relationship with America and China. And I'm going to steal his words, exquisitely positioned. So we're friends with both.
Mm-hmm.
And we maintain our sovereign right to do it. And we think we're respected because we do work with both.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that means that we get a lot of work done despite our small size and stature. We get a lot of work done because of how we operate in that space. We don't. I think the news cycle may have blown it out of proportion a little bit, though.
Okay, I've got this question that I asked. So this has to do with my PhD research, which is around how we make decisions that involve complex trade-offs when we're trying to balance benefits and risks that don't easily balance out on a cost-benefit analysis because they're in different categories. You've got, in this deep sea mining case, it's often framed as environmental risks versus human benefits, and those things aren't easy to compare. But I wonder, in your case, just what are the trade-off setups that you have to manage or that you see in the Cook Islands case? Like, where are the values and the issues that you have to try to weigh against one another, and how do you do that? I mean, not you personally, obviously you're not in charge of making the whole thing, but just, yeah.
No. I think you just said it, right? So quite often people posit BSM as environmental risk or economic benefit. And the fact is it's both. The role of a regulator is to actually manage that uncertainty and gather information and determine where on the scale everything should sit. Managing uncertainty is what we do, and I think we do it very, very well by putting in regulations and rules. It's not like you can pull these nodules up without any impact. We know there's going to be impact, so then we have to talk about what is acceptable on a size and basis, and you have to remember size and scale. And then we have to look at the economic benefit too for our people and weigh that up against the environment. So yes, there's an impact on the environment. Is the benefit to our people worth that? Yes or no? It's a complex equation, and that's why we're here to work through that uncertainty and get closer to answers so that people can make a decision on where we head next.
Is that the main framing? This, like, from the way you look at it, is it mostly environment versus welfare and trying to analyze those things, present that information, be as transparent and helpful as you can in helping everybody make those decisions collectively? Or are there other values and other issues? What other issues do you see being on the table beyond those kind of two headlines?
Environment is the one that's easy as a headline. Everybody can identify with the environment. The commercial reality of it, the technology piece, the companies that are going to be doing this responsible and rigorous, and are they going to be sustainable? That for us here is one of the key questions. It's the hidden part of the equation, but it has equal, if not more important weight because it is hidden. If we don't do our job in making sure that part of the equation is solid, the environmental piece, it's there, but it's the easy part of the equation to answer. They have equal weight, though.
I like that you have such a focus on size and scale. I think that is piece of the conversation that's so easily just kind of skipped over, and it seems like it makes such a big difference once you start to put numbers on the scope of the activity. How did the Cook Islands determine, like you said, in the size of a rugby field, 3 licenses operating for 30 years would approximate a scrum? And I mean, for international listeners, that's probably not as intuitive a size reference, but yeah, how did you arrive at that would be the size? Is that just kind of the technical limitation, or I guess the economic limitation? Where does how do you get to the size and scope, if that makes sense?
So that was initially the work we've done with our license holders and also our knowledge management team. We have some incredibly talented, very nerdy people that love working out this information. So our whole EEZ is broken up into blocks and cells. So it's like a great big patchwork quilt for us. That's how we see it. Within that, we have designated areas for our license holders. And then within that, we know if they ever do get to a point of minerals harvesting, the area that they would potentially harvest is restricted to a certain size. And our scientists have worked out what that would be. They've worked out what the volume would be. That is confidential. Before you ask that next question. So they have actually mapped it all out, and they've spent years figuring out the size and scale of it. And then somebody like myself and my colleague Ed comes along and says, okay, on a map that doesn't make much sense, how do we talk to our people about it? It was probably a 6-month debate to try and figure out its size of a rugby field and a scrum. So now I'm going to have to figure out an international version of that so other people can understand it, like a cricket pitch or something.
I want to ask kind of what success looks like if everything goes kind of well for the Cook Islands and the environmental analyses come back well, and I suppose also that these economic analyses come back well. What does success look like? What is the ideal path forward timeline-wise? And yeah.
Success for the Cook Islands is economic resilience, to have in place all the things that a lot of people take for granted. So to have a hospital with modern equipment. So at the moment, if somebody gets sick with, say, they need dialysis or something, we have to fly them off to New Zealand or Australia for treatment, and they're gone for the island for however long that treatment takes. So we would like to have those normal things for most people here on our island, so we don't have to ship our loved ones off for basic necessities, healthcare. Success for us looks like the economic resilience and having those things in place. When it will be is when we're satisfied that equation is answered to its fullest extent and we're doing the right thing for the people in the right time. We will not be rushed. We will not succumb to any pressure. We have the questions that we need to be answered, and we will take our time answering it. We've spent 12 years doing it already. It took 40 years from knowing that the resource was there to actually put in place SBMA. So Cook Islanders are very adept at taking their time and having a considered approach, and that won't change. So it's like, how long's a piece of string? It will be, if it is going to be, it will be when we're ready.
What about the supply chain questions? Is there talk of where those nodules would go? Is that something that's already strategized about, or is that still further down the road?
There's obviously talk about it. President Trump signed documents stating that he wanted nodules, the critical minerals. So America is obviously very interested in the resource, but then so is the rest of the world. And we have an interest too in climate change. So a lot of activities take place in the world that have affected climate, which affects us directly. Rising seawaters means that we're losing our landmass. We don't have a lot of landmass to lose. So if we can assist in the green economy and adjusting climate change for the better, then that's where we can see where we can assist and benefit, or assist the rest of the world. Where these minerals go, that's an open conversation at the moment.
Is there discussion of infrastructure, local infrastructure? I would be surprised if people were talking about building out processing in the Cook Islands, but I imagine that there's more to local mining infrastructure than just building a refinery on one of your islands.
Okay, so size and scale again. We could not physically put a processing plant here. It would take up 2/3 of Rarotonga. We just couldn't do it. It's not physically possible. So it couldn't be done. So in the event that the nodules get harvested, they would go on a vessel and have to be shipped somewhere. So yes, our license holders and us as a government are talking to people about where they could possibly be processed, and best use for those. So we are talking about it. But in terms of us, we looked and figured out we don't have the space. We just don't. So.
But there'd be other support activities. There'd be if there was mining activity, like this is one of the things you said off the top, as compared to CCZ mining, it would be much more close to shore. And so there would be much more support activities, I suppose, that you guys would benefit from?
Yeah, actually, one of the key support mechanisms we're looking at is something called IBOS, Institute of Blue Ocean Science and Sustainability. Think of it as an educational destination for science and research in our deep ocean. So a lot of research is going on in the area.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to be a science destination, so people can come to a very similar area, very easy to get to.
Mm-hmm.
The visas, you don't have issues with visas here. You can fly direct in and then you can get to the outer islands within hours. And what a magnificent place to conduct research. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is build us up as a destination for research. That is one of those side hustles, side industries that we're looking at building alongside.
Yeah, and that doesn't depend on the extraction phase coming along at any particular time, that you are able to be a research destination already. That's a great point. Well, thanks so much for your time, and
Thank you.
I wonder if there's anything else that you feel we haven't covered that you would like to mention before we sign off in terms of helping an international audience understand what's important to the Cook Islands perspective.
So I talk about size and scale, but also a perception. We are one of the world's most beautiful locations. I'm not going to lie. It's absolutely a blessing to live and work here. What won't be seen are the vessels. So our whole area is marine protected within 50 nautical miles of each island. So that's as far as you see on the horizon. And then if you consider the absolute vastness of where we are, you will never see this industry from land. So I think when people are thinking about tourism and would it interrupt with tourism, no, it's just another industry that will never be seen. It will not affect the beauty of the Cook Islands and how we operate culturally. And I think that's very important for people to understand. It's not like there's going to be a massive mining vessel plonked in the middle of a lagoon. It's just not going to happen. So if it does go ahead, most people won't even realize, they won't even see it as an industry. It'll be invisible to a large majority of people.
Yeah, so that's interesting that I can tell then that has been a concern. I hadn't realized that makes sense when you say it. I understand tourism is the bulk of the economy, and so anything that is going to come in, you have to look at it through the lens of, will this negatively affect the existing industry? What about other industries? What about fishing? Is there concern about the effect on fishing? Is that one of the things that you hear from your stakeholders and have to manage?
Yes, something we hear from our stakeholders. And again, size and scale. So fishers don't go down 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers deep. There is some concern around noise from the vessels, but the noise from the vessels would be no different to the actual fishing vessels themselves. So these are all part of the questions that we're answering. For the Cook Islands, our Marae Moana is a protected reserve already. It's already environmentally protected. We already look after it. We already look after migrating species like the whales coming through. So we already take great care, and we will not do anything that undermines or damages that.
Great. I guess I'll wrap it up here. Thanks again for your time. Where do you send people to follow what you guys are up to? So you said you've got a website. It's got all of the information. You focus on transparency. Where do you send people who want to know more?
sbma.gov.ck is our website, so please go on there. We're also on Facebook under Seabed Minerals Authority, and we're on Instagram too, so you can find us under Seabed Minerals Authority on all of the regular platforms and our website.
Okay, I'll put links to that in the show notes. And Bev, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Eric.